Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla Apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and this is The Roger Stone Show. I'm joined by Troy Smith, the editor-in-chief of Slingshot.News, and we are examining all of the anomalies and strange developments regarding the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. I am told from my own sources that some elements within the government have briefed the president, telling him that that this was an attempt on his life that at least some in government may have been aware of, but also predicting privately that he may be a target again. That's because Donald Trump is an existential threat to the ruling elite who run this country. He's the most improbable candidate for president. And I can tell you, having known him 45 years, he can't be bought, he can't be bossed. He always will put America first. It's so funny. Joe Biden always said that this election was about Trump, that it was all about Trump and his ego. If that were true, Trump would have walked away. This has cost him billions of dollars. It almost cost him his life. So knowing Donald Trump, I must tell you, there's a real change in his demeanor. He is calm. He continues to be resilient. He continues to be determined. But there's an overall calmness about him, and I think he acknowledged that he saw the hand of the Almighty. I think we have a tape of something he said on the stump. All right, we'll pull that up here in a second. We do have a tape of Maria Bartiromo, who I think is starting to take apart the narrative regarding the assassination we've been given.
The local officers went up to that roof and started taking pictures of the dead body, of the shooter's body. So suddenly a guy in a gray suit walks up the ladder and goes up to the roof. And this guy in the gray suit, who didn't appear to have credentials, everybody assumed he was the Secret Service. So he tells one of the local law enforcement, send those pictures to this cell phone. And he gives him a number. And everybody assumed, well, that must be Secret Service. It turns out it wasn't Secret Service. So we're going to tell you exactly who that person was and what agency the local enforcement sent the pictures to. Ron Johnson has it all in his preliminary report, and it's pretty incredible. So we're digging deep into this investigation of that massive security failure that occurred when a shooter was able to get 7 shots out and, of course, grazing President Trump's ear and killing Corey Compertor, which we all pray for his family right now. So we're talking about that this morning. We will also talk with Eric.
An extraordinary development. Our hearts do go out to Corey Compertor, a local fire chief who shielded his wife and daughter, was tragically shot in the head. Yet there are people online like Keith Olbermann who say that this whole thing is staged, that Trump was not wounded, that this is some kind of psyop. Then you have Dr. Anthony Fauci, who has not examined President Trump, but he assures us that Trump's wounds are superficial and really not troublesome. That is one of the more outrageous things that I've heard. I want to remind you, folks, we're taking your calls at 800-848-9222. And coming up, we have not only Congressman Clay Higgins, who represents Louisiana's 3rd District in the House of Representatives. He has spent most of his life dedicated to uniformed service, an Army veteran, a law enforcement officer, and has maintained an action commission in the Louisiana State Guard. The Congressman will be joining us shortly. Also joining us later in the program, former Democrat Congressman Rod Blagojevich, one of the earliest victims of the criminalization of our Justice Department. But he's a Democrat who went to the Republican National Convention. We're going to talk to him as well. Right now, we're on with Troy Smith, the editor-in-chief of Slingshot.News. We're trying to deconstruct the many anomalies pertaining to this attempted assassination, including, I think, a credible report that Crooks, if he is in fact the killer of Compertor and the attempted killer of President Donald Trump, that his parents had called authorities to report his unbalanced nature and the fact that he may pose a threat. Troy, did you see that media report?
Yes, I did, Roger, and I think it's very important to highlight because, you know, for anybody that's been anyone at school, post the school shootings that we've seen since Columbine, knows that they have drills at the public schools in our country where if there is any active shooter in the area, they'll lock down the schools. The kids will actually be hiding under the desks. So the level of threat awareness that goes on in day-to-day life when there is an active shooter is quite serious. And yet we have this guy who stole his father's gun. The authorities had been alerted that there was a gunman on the loose. The guy was obviously very political, President Trump speaking in the area. And you highlighted it earlier, Roger. There's an officer that encounters the shooter and calls in the radio call, and they don't make sure that President Trump doesn't go out on the stage. I mean, forget the stage. He should not have been allowed to be anywhere out in the open where there was somebody running around with a gun where authorities had been alerted. And he's reportedly, Roger, he was scoping out the area with a drone. He had a rangefinder on him. All signs point to the fact that this guy was not only noticed, they were aware of his presence for at least an hour before this shooting. And the idea that President Trump was allowed to walk out there, I think, points to a very, very sinister and nefarious intent by the people who allowed him to do it. And then we saw the response afterwards, Roger, with Secret Service agents struggling to holster their weapons, struggling to get the president in the car. I think, we look at the entire situation, and President Trump is exactly right. We thank God every day that he was not taken from this country at that moment, because it's only by the grace of God. The Secret Service appears to have done just about everything possible to have made this the most tragic, divisive day in the history of the United States. And by the grace of God, it failed.
All right, Troy, let's go to the phone line. Again, folks, if you're interested in calling in, the number is 800-848-9222. Jacqueline in Brooklyn, you've been patiently waiting. Welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you very much, Roger. This question is for both you and Troy. I heard, I don't remember if it was on another show or on a news clip, that the Secret Service engaged with the shooter 3 hours before the rally began. And I have not been able to find that story or that information anywhere online. And I'm wondering if either of you have heard about that and have any information about that.
Troy, I'm on information overload. There's so much now being published, so much of it needs to be examined. The government has rushed to judgment. It's amazing how quickly they told us who the killer was. Kind of remind me of how quickly they identified Lee Harvey Oswald, who I wrote an entire New York Times best-selling book making the case that he not only was not the shooter, but that he was the patsy set up by a conspiracy. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am a conspiracy realist. I go where the facts go. Troy, have you heard anything about the Secret Service being aware of the killer, in this case, allegedly Crooks, 2 hours in advance?
No. Well, Roger, he was spotted in advance, and the best information that I can ascertain is it's about an hour. That looks like to be the window in which he was kind of doing what he was doing, and there was some video captured of him. I have not heard 2 hours, but the best I can ascertain is about an hour of time that passed between the first spotting of Crooks and when this deadly and tragic event took place.
Here's another strange fact. Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch tells us that the Butler County Sheriff's Office were not wearing their body cameras. How strange is it that a key law enforcement agency did not have its responding officers equipped with body cameras? Really extraordinary, given the fact that we also know that in this particular instance, they were using local police protection to function in positions that would have normally be filled by Secret Service agents. The Secret Service Director, Kimberly Cheadle, under fire, explained the lack of a sniper team on the roof by saying that the roof was sloped and therefore it would have been dangerous for them to be there. I would say it was more dangerous for Donald Trump that they weren't there. But then if it is accurate, as has been reported, that a Secret Service counter sniper had the shooter in his sights, we have to ask why he waited until the shooter got off. There's some discrepancy, but somewhere between 5 and 11 shots, killing one man, wounding two people, and coming within millimeters of killing Donald Trump. You wonder how such a thing can even be happening.
Well, and Roger, on top of it, when you look at, I think the most damning part of an unclassified briefing that was released on Wednesday, the law enforcement officials stated that they had the snipers honed in on Crooks for 20 minutes prior to this shooting. And I think there's been a lot of questions asked about, the idea that the snipers seem to have Crooks in the crosshairs when he gets off this shot. And I think it's a legitimate question. If he was in the eyes of this sniper, very clearly brandishing a weapon, we know he was clearly brandishing the weapon because we have the on-the-ground footage from behind and to the side angles of Crooks where you can clearly see him with a weapon pointing directly at the president, Roger. So the idea that they had this gentleman, Crooks, in their crosshairs for 20 minutes and did not do anything, I kind of look at this and say it's kind of how could you not have prevented this? It appears to have been preventable just about at every turn. And I refuse to believe that it's a coincidence that we had this many bizarre, quote unquote, security lapses in this moment. It just seems too far-fetched.
Jacqueline, thank you so much for calling the Roger Stone Show on this newsy Sunday afternoon. For those who have not heard the news, President Joe Biden has announced that he will not stand for re-election. He is not stepping down as president, although Vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance, demonstrating exactly why he was chosen, calling for the president to do so, making the case today that if you're not well enough, not strong enough to be a candidate for president, then you should be serving as a president. Many people, I could tell you, urged President Donald Trump not to go to Michigan, but although security was beefed up substantially, I can just tell you Trump is not going to back down. He will not campaign safely from his basement. He is, I think, demonstrates the true Trump. When you saw that shortly after he struggled to his feet, was immediately covered by a scrum of Secret Service agents, not knowing whether there was still an active shooter, made a motion to break free enough to signal the crowd with his raised, clenched fist and said, "Fight, fight, fight." That is the indomitable Donald Trump that I know. That is perhaps going to be one of the most iconic images in American history. But that is very evocative of Trump. He is a brawler. He is a fighter. He is extraordinarily determined to win this election. And now it appears that he will have a different opponent. Mike from Queens, you have a question. We'll take that when we come back. Mike, don't go away. This is the Roger Stone Show. I'm here with Troy Smith of Slingshot.News. We'll be right back.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Plan on flying? In order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID. Learn how to get your real ID today at tsa.gov/real ID or visit your local DMV.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Roger Stone. We're here with Troy Smith, the editor-in-chief of Slingshot.News. We're talking about not only the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the developing story there, but also about the bombshell announcement by President Joe Biden that he will not stand for election. Just before the break, I had Mike in Queens on the line. Mike, are you still with us?
Yes, sir.
All right. The floor is yours.
Okay. Real straight to it. I'm listening to this fiasco du jour with the team Biden. And the fact that he resigned from the race and he apparently still wants to be president, how many points or how much of a bump does that cost Kamala from instead of being slingshot into the Democratic field or the primary and being the front runner, now she still has to babysit this guy through the Democratic Party. And I'm just curious how enraged would you be if you were one of the people in the mix over there saying that Biden just didn't step away completely? And I'll take my answer off the air, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for calling in, Mike. This is very simple. Joe Biden is denying Kamala Harris to the opportunity to be the first woman president of the United States, which Hillary Clinton's probably pretty happy about. But you're absolutely right. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who was the White House physician under three presidents, under President George W. Bush, President Barack Obama, and then finally President Donald Trump, before resigning as an admiral in the U.S. Navy to run for the U.S. Congress in Texas, has examined Trump, examined his wound, which I assure Keith Olbermann is absolutely real, and the bandage was not for effect. New York Magazine said it was an ersatz bandage. What's that supposed to mean? It's because Joe Biden understands that he must maintain the ability to pardon his son, his brother, and theoretically himself. One thing we know definitively is that the House Oversight Committee has bank records that indisputably prove that members of the Biden family, including Joe, received as much as $18 million from Russia, from China, from Ukraine, from Syria, from Mexico, from Romania. This is the same Joe Biden who, at the presidential debates in 2020, looked into the camera and told us that no member of his family had taken a penny from any foreign country. But I think that explains why he is staying on the job. Troy, your thoughts?
Well, it's an excellent question, and I think it's important for everybody to keep in mind that it is not a guarantee that Kamala Harris will be the nominee here. And we're going to have a roll call vote in early August, and we don't have an exact date on this. I've looked into this very extensively. It's going to be the first week of August, and it's going to be online over Zoom, basically. And if a majority of the delegates do not vote for Kamala Harris, this will go to an open convention. And at that open convention, Roger, anybody, including your prediction of Michelle Obama, could enter this race. And a simple majority of the delegates would reward that person with the nomination to become president of the, or to be the Democrat candidate to become president of the United States. So that's the first part of this. Kamala Harris is not guaranteed to be the replacement. I think if Biden and the Democrats were really this interested in putting Kamala Harris up for the presidential spot, that the endorsement would have been included in the initial letter. The follow-up endorsement was issued as a follow-up endorsement because it means absolutely nothing. And though Biden can urge his delegates to vote for Kamala Harris, they are not bound by anything to actually vote for her. So I think you're going to see an open convention here as to why Biden is choosing to stay. I think, Roger, Biden has wanted to stay all along. It's very clear Jill Biden is doing everything within her power to keep him. We all saw the video after the debate where she's going, "Yay, Joe, you answered all the questions. I'm so proud. You're a big boy." They talk about big boy press conferences. The idea that he is incapable of being president, to me, was cemented when his own Justice Department declared that they were not going to prosecute him for illegally holding classified documents that he didn't have the authority to even possess in his home and sharing them with a ghostwriter who was sending them back and forth on these unsecured devices. That right there, the Hur report told you that this guy was not capable of running for re-election or holding the office of the presidency. I think it's a brilliant move by J.D. Vance and House Speaker Mike Johnson to call for Biden to resign. It should have happened a long time ago when we got that declaration from the Biden Justice Department. But moving forward, I think you're going to see a pressure campaign to get Biden out, mounted by the Republicans. Whether that will be successful or not, I doubt, Roger, because the only way I see it really shaking out at this point is if they try to 25th Amendment, and if there is some kind of backdoor deal going on here, the Biden cabinet, which I guarantee you has allegiances to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, will be doing as they're told, not doing things based on, this guy's not capable of fulfilling his duties, which they should. I think we'll see pressure from the House Republicans, but other than that, it'll be a very hard struggle to get Biden to leave.
I have not abandoned my prediction that Michelle Obama could yet emerge as the Democrat candidate. And I say that because I think once things settle down, the polling is going to show that Kamala Harris cannot beat President Donald Trump, or at least is not well positioned to beat him, nor is any other Democrat. And that Michelle Obama still remains one of the most popular women, certainly one of the most popular Democrats in the country. I want to be clear. I've never said that she wanted to run. I never said she planned to run. But I did predict that Biden would not run. I did predict that it would go to an open convention. I think I'll be right about that. And it appears to me that that is still not outside the realm of possibility, that she would be convinced to run because she is the strongest potential candidate. So I'm not prepared to say I've only been half right. I did call Biden's decision not to run. But this is going to distract attention again from the afterglow of a very successful Republican National Convention, as well as the what appears to be botched protection of President Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. The president's crowd, by the way, in Michigan yesterday, enormous crowd, and the president was in rare form, as you heard earlier, proposing a missile shield for the United States and praising former President Ronald Reagan, who he actually went on to say was a very great president. Folks, if you're just tuning in, I'm Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Network, and we'll be right back.
It's The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Roger Stone. I want to thank Troy Smith, the editor-in-chief of Slingshot.news. You can go to that great new news outlet and subscribe. It is absolutely free. Troy, thank you for joining us today, helping us break down the many questions regarding the attempt on President Donald Trump's life.
God bless you, Roger. Thank you, and thank you to all the listeners out there. Really appreciate you all and appreciate this show. You're great, and it's always an honor, sir.
All right. Al in Florida, you've been waiting patiently. If you wait just one more minute, I'm going to bring in our next guest. Mark Vargas is the editor-in-chief of the Illinois Review, the largest conservative publication in Illinois from 2007 to 2010. Mr. Vargas served as a civilian on the staff of U.S. Defense Secretary Robert Gates, having traveled to Baghdad, Iraq, 14 times as part of an Iraq task force. He is also a regular providing political analysis on the Stone Zone, among other places. Mark Vargas, thanks for joining us here on The Roger Stone Show.
Roger, great to be with you. What a slow news day on a Sunday.
Yeah, it's really extraordinary. All right, Al in Florida, you've been waiting patiently. Welcome to The Roger Stone Show.
Good afternoon, Mr. Stone, and it's a great honor to speak to you. I listen to you every Sunday. I have a few questions. One, on the TV series Law and Order, they seem to be able to identify the bullets came from the same gun. I wonder if they will be able to retrieve the bullets, maybe not all 8, but at least some of them, to tell whether they came from that one assailant's gun.
Well,
secondly,
okay, go ahead.
Secondly, the fact that President Trump had his rally in an arena indoors, I believe, that certainly will add to his safety, and they'll be able to screen a lot more effectively, allowing people indoors. And thirdly, I met your daughter, and she certainly is excited to talk about her dad.
That's very, very kind. My daughter, Audria, is an emergency room nurse in the local hospital. She's also a strong supporter of President Donald Trump and an extraordinary young woman, mother of 3. And I can't even tell you how much I love her and how supportive she was when Robert Mueller targeted me and pressured me to bear false witness against Donald Trump. By the way, folks, in the final unredacted edition of Robert Mueller's report, which the Justice Department sought to keep from me and my lawyers, even Mueller could not sugarcoat the fact that he found no evidence whatsoever of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime. Just had to say that. To answer your earlier question, this is the anomalies here from to 1968 are really, really extraordinary. Lyndon Johnson dropped out as early as April of that year when he got nicked in the New Hampshire primary by Senator Eugene McCarthy of Minnesota. Robert Kennedy, the former Attorney General, then the U.S. Senator from New York, had not given in to the entreaties of the anti-Vietnam War wing of the Democrat Party, had not been willing to challenge LBJ. So Gene McCarthy, a much less well-known candidate, stepped forward. People don't realize that Johnson did not lose the New Hampshire primary, but McCarthy exceeded expectations, and shortly thereafter, LBJ dropped out. What people also don't know is that Lyndon Johnson considered jumping back into the race when his own vice president, Hubert Humphrey, began to try to put distance between himself and Lyndon Johnson on the Vietnam War, that which had made LBJ exceedingly unpopular. Johnson actually had an elaborate plan in which he would helicopter into Chicago that Texas Governor John Connally, then a Democrat, later the Republican Secretary of the Treasury, would nominate LBJ from the floor. In the end, of course, that did not happen. Robert Kennedy's assassination, the assassination of of Reverend Martin Luther King, the deep divisions caused by the Vietnam War, all of this hobbled the candidacy of Humphrey and in a way opened the seas for what was then the greatest political comeback in American history, that of Richard Nixon. If those who say Donald Trump has violated various state and federal laws really believe that, then why wasn't he charged in any court in the first year of Joe Biden's presidency? Why did they wait until the fourth year? And even then, why did Special Counsel Jack Smith, whose very appointment has now been declared unconstitutional by a judge in Florida, former Attorney General Ed Meese, and two brilliant law professors who are not Trump supporters, having filed both an amicus brief and testified in the Florida court, that there is no authority under law for Smith's appointment, and that Smith had never been confirmed by the U.S. Senate. I saw that Hunter Biden challenged the special counsel's authority based on the Florida decision, but the special counsel in Hunter Biden's case was and is a sitting U.S. attorney in Delaware. Thus, he has been confirmed by the Senate. Apples and oranges. Al, thank you so much for your call. A question, Mark. You've been active on the foreign affairs of our country. The move by President Volodymyr Zelensky to reach out to President Trump, when I read that at first, it said, the early report said that Trump was calling Zelensky, which I think would be inappropriate. You could see Democrats accusing him of violating the Logan Act, something former Secretary of State John Kerry did throughout the Trump presidency. That didn't seem to bother any of the Democrats. But now I learned it was Zelensky who called Trump simply to congratulate him on his renomination and also to wish him well, having survived this horrific assassination attempt. As one who lived through the Kennedy assassination, remembering it extraordinarily well, I think every American will remember where they were when they learned that President Donald Trump was shot. I had that same lump in my throat when I heard that President Ronald Reagan had been shot. In the case of Kennedy, there was an interval of time between the public report that he'd been shot and the report that he was dead. I absolutely feared that would happen again. Thank God Almighty that was not the case. Also, Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister of Britain, visiting Donald Trump. Mark, how do you read these international developments?
Well, Roger, for starters, I mean, just think about all the billions and billions of dollars that under the Joe Biden administration that Zelensky has received to continue their efforts in defense against the Russia invasion. If I were Zelensky, it's smart to be calling President Donald Trump because he still is trying to figure out a way to secure even more money. I mean, how is his wife supposed to go on $1 million shopping sprees in New York City when they visit the United States? But listen, everybody knows that under Donald Trump's administration, we had a stronger foreign policy. The world was safer. Under the Biden administration, everything has completely fallen apart. And so you can imagine the only reason why it's clear, the only reason why Putin invaded Ukraine was because there's a weak president, U.S. president in the Oval Office. The only reason why Hamas invaded Israel is because there's a weak president in the Oval Office. And I can't reiterate this enough that the person occupying the Oval Office, it has reverberations around the world. And Roger, in my experience traveling as a civilian into Baghdad 14 times during combat from 07 to 10 and meeting with and being up in the room with different world leaders and heads of state during the Middle East conflict, it's clear that these leaders only respect one thing, power and strength. And you certainly didn't have that under the Biden administration. In fact, nothing but weakness. And Roger, I'm going to go out on the limb and say that I believe that we may have another conflict here in the next month that will erupt somewhere either in the Middle East, maybe China going into Taiwan. Why? Because these leaders are going to want to do everything that they can to keep a Democratic president in office. And they know how weak Kamala Harris is. Just look at, she was the border czar. Look what happened to our border. I mean, we've had millions and millions and millions of illegals, dangerous criminals, people on the FBI terrorism watch list, just literally walk into our country while Kamala Harris was the border czar. That's an indication of what a foreign policy strategy will look like under a Kamala Harris administration. So, of course, these leaders like Putin and Hamas and China and North Korea, our biggest adversaries, of course they're going to want to egg on and support a Democratic administration at all costs, because to Donald Trump, they can't play these games anymore. And so it's no surprise that you've got leaders like Zelensky and Boris Johnson that are reaching out to President Trump, because it's going to be a very different foreign policy under his administration.
Well, Mark, both you and I were at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. It was one of the smoothest run conventions I've ever seen. Also, very compelling in terms of the people at home watching it on TV or watching it online, everyday Americans illustrating the problems of the country, those telling horrible tales of murder of family members by illegals in this country, veterans of the disastrous pullout in Afghanistan, just the makeup of the convention. Many black faces, Hispanic faces, Asian faces, extraordinary number of young people. This is not your father's Republican Party. We are no longer the party of big business. We are no longer the party of the wealthy elite. We are no longer the party of the country club. We really are the party of America first. I, not speaking for anyone but myself, but I was very pleased with the selection of J.D. Vance. Not only is he not a neocon, not committed to billions more for Ukraine, but he is America first. Yes, we say right up front, he was not always a fan of President Donald Trump. But many weren't. Remember, we were told Trump will cause a stock market crash. Trump will cause a World War III. Well, we had, I think, the greatest stock market in American history under Donald Trump. And he not only didn't cause World War III, we had no new wars, as he brought back tens of thousands of service members from the Middle East without the countries they were leaving collapsing behind them into the hands of the enemy. So ironically, Trump emerges, as Nixon did in 1968, as the peace candidate in this race, the peace candidate. And I think that's an extraordinary asset. The American people realize that there are no peace negotiations, not even discussions, going on between Russia and Ukraine because our State Department has vetoed them. That makes very little sense. And then you have the situation in the Middle East in which Donald Trump's policies had really impoverished Iran. The sanctions he put him on them were so tough they could not sell their oil even to the Chinese. Therefore, they didn't have the money to restart their nuclear weapons development program. They didn't have the money to finance terrorism by Hamas and Hezbollah against Israel. This administration is on both sides. We're funding our traditional democratic ally, Israel, the only real democracy in the region. At the same time, we've unfrozen over 190 billion, I believe, is in assets to a rogue regime that said before they got the money they would use it only for humanitarian purposes, and then said after they got the first tranche, well, this is our money, we'll do whatever we want with it. Is that a reasonable assessment, Mark?
That is a reasonable assessment, Roger. And, I'm calling it now the Democratic National Chaos Convention, the DNC in Chicago, because it really is representative of what 4 years under Joe Biden has been. It's been nothing but chaos. I mean, the $7 billion in the U.S. military equipment that we just abandoned in Afghanistan, and now it's popping up in the arms and hands of our enemies abroad. This is no surprise. And, Roger, what was really interesting, and it shows it's just a significant tactical fatal error, is that they could have opened up Bagram Base, which was literally about a half hour from Kabul, where you've got a ton of land. You could have brought all of the weapons, all of the $7 billion of equipment, U.S. equipment. You could have brought that 30 minutes down the road to Bagram Air Base, and you could have safely secured all of that equipment. Instead, they exit through Kabul, which is in the middle of a city, creating total chaos. So that's just one example of sort of the failed foreign policy of the Biden administration. But to go back to your point, Roger, and it was an honor to be with you during the convention. The convention, the faces of the convention were representative of the new Republican Party under President Donald Trump. I mean, he has realigned politics in America, and you can see that. You saw that at the convention. For example, real quick, in Chicago, the host of the DNC convention next month, what they're not really wanting to share publicly is that last year in 2023, under Democratic control, over 225,000 high-priority 911 calls went completely unanswered in the city of Chicago. Why? Because they've spent the last 4 years beating up on the police, the Democratic political leaders, beating up on the police. We have a mass exodus. We're short 2,000 Chicago police officers in the city of Chicago, while at the same time crime is skyrocketing. Carjackings are skyrocketing. July 4th holiday weekend, we broke records, 27% increase in violent crime from the year before, 109 shootings, 19 deaths. I mean, this is not law and order. This is lawlessness. And what President Trump represents, not only law and order in the United States, but law and order across the globe.
All right. I'm afraid we have to leave it there. I want to thank our guest, Mark Vargas, the editor-in-chief of the Illinois Review, for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show. Coming up next, we have Louisiana Congressman Clay Higgins, one of the loudest voices for the equal protection under the law, and someone who has done a deep dive on the January 6 events. He's going to join us next on the Roger Stone Show, so don't go away because we'll be right back.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
And we're back, folks. I am Roger Stone on this momentous Sunday with the bombshell news by President Joe Biden that he is not resigning the presidency, but he will not be a candidate for re-election. At first saying that he would endorse no one, then quickly amending his written statement and saying that he's endorsing Kamala Harris. We are taking your calls. We have a number of folks who've been patiently waiting. Let's take let's say Robert from Brooklyn. Welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Well, a few points. You alluded to Maria Bartiromo. She had Senator Ron Johnson on, And one of the things he seemed to say that there seems to be some argument that there was more than one shooter. And, it's very interesting. A colleague of yours, Owen Schroyer, he interviewed someone named John Cullen. And he seemed to make a very strong argument that the back row, there was one shot that went across the back row of people, and he seemed to say he could see it hitting off the railing in the corner. And he seems to suggest, that was from a sniper, he tried to say, in the forest that tried to shoot at one of the Secret Service's snipers, and it went across the row, because there was no other way to explain it. It was one shot, the first shot, that seemed to go across the back row. So that would suggest that there was someone in the forest. People are questioning whether there was someone on the water tower. I definitely don't trust the FBI to investigate this. They just don't trust them at all. If anything, they cover everything up. Now, in general, it clearly was a lack of sufficient Secret Service people, and also the quality of the people. They seem to have people who are not even regular Secret Service people, part of the detail. That just shows a total, at the very least, an indifference to the well-being of President Trump. It's like me going mountain climbing at around 150 pounds, and I use a mountain gear that only supports 100 pounds. That was outrageous. They provided him with really, really bad, service. That was very poor Secret Service for him. And the last point I just wanted to mention was about J.D. Vance. The conservative treehouse seems to be very doubtful of J.D. Vance. They mentioned he has a connection to Peter Thiel and Palantir Technology. And as you alluded to before, at the very beginning, J.D. Vance said the worst things about Trump. Now, I know Laura Loomer wants to forgive him, but still, it's his connection to Peter Thiel and all the history of being stabbed in the back by these people. Just look at the attorney generals and stuff that sabotaged the MAGA movement. So I'm very doubtful about J.D. Vance. I agree with the first caller who said Trump should have his own protection. Maybe he could teach to Dan Bongino to get his own protection, because I don't trust these government agencies.
Well, we still don't know to this day. There's still debate about who actually killed President John F. Kennedy. There's a debate about whether there was a conspiracy. I think I made a pretty good case in my New York Times bestselling book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ. We still don't know the facts regarding the attempted assassination on President Ronald Reagan. John Hinckley, the man who was convicted of trying to kill Reagan, was always crouching in front of Reagan. He got off 4 bullets. All 4 bullets are accounted for, yet it is indisputable that Reagan was hit from above and behind. The government report on that has never been released. So are we ever going to get the truth about what happened? I saw an excellent piece by Chris Martenson, a PhD, an expert on acoustical audio files. He claims that it is 100% provably false that there is only one gunman. He claims that based on an analysis of comparing the audio files from 2 separate video recordings, one taken right in front of Trump and another taken just to the side of the American Glass building that Crooks was spotted on, would indicate that there were more than one shooter. There's some reports of a man being seen on a water tower, but again, all of this is unconfirmed. I don't know in the final analysis that we'll ever be allowed to know the entire truth. Seems to me there's a series of questions that need to be asked, such as what is the FBI doing to look and determine whether there were other shooters, whether they have found a second location. Also asking whether a second shooter escaped detection, given all of the security staff on hand, why roles that should have been filled by the Secret Service seem to have been left to local and state police. The number of questions here are really vexing. I'm told President Trump has been advised that this may have been part of a conspiracy to kill him by some elements of the government. I proved in my book that the Secret Service, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the FBI all were involved and knew in advance about the planned murder of John F. Kennedy. So I agree with you, Robert. I do not trust the Secret Service or the FBI to investigate themselves. sorry if I am skeptical. There is only one body that has the authority to investigate this without unfettered, without political considerations, and that would be the Republican majority in the U.S. House. They have to conduct a vigorous investigation. We're not going to get anywhere near the truth if we fail to do that. That's why it's a good thing that Congressman Clay Higgins is about to join us here at the Roger Stone Show. He's actually serves on the House Homeland Security Committee. He's also chairman of the Border Security and Enforcement Subcommittee of that committee. Congressman Higgins also serves as member of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee. He's been involved in the investigation of the corruption of the Biden crime family. I'm very grateful that he is able to join us on short notice. I've been very, very impressed with him as one of those in the U.S. House who seems to understand that they went to Washington not to be somebody, but to accomplish something. A strong and outspoken supporter of President Donald Trump. He's going to be along with us after this commercial break. You're tuned in to the Roger Stone Show. Robert, thank you so much for your call. Folks, don't touch that dial because we'll be right back.
This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and this is Roger Stone on the show on the Red Apple Audio Network. While we're waiting for Congressman Clay Higgins to join us, we're going to go back to the phone lines. The number once again, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Let's go to Dean in New Jersey. Dean, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Roger. I have a question, just one question. CNN has never covered a Trump rally live, never, except for this one. Why is that?
I also found that extraordinarily interesting. As you know, there was a CNN camera crew that just happened totally by coincidence to be 25 feet from my front door on January 25th, 2019, when at 6 o'clock in the morning, 29 fully SWAT-clad, heavily armed FBI agents brandishing fully automatic assault weapons stormed my home to arrest me for the first time, a nonviolent crime of allegedly lying to Congress in my voluntary testimony before the House Intelligence Committee, when the government could never establish any motive to lie to Congress. So it is extraordinarily suspicious, once again, that CNN had full coverage of the rally. I am surprised, not surprised, but I should say pleased at the way the President Trump, has conducted himself since that horrific event. The speech that many in the mainstream media panned at his convention, I went back and reread it. It was an uplifting, unifying speech. I think it reads extremely well. I can tell you that in the hall, there was really not a dry eye in the House. Yet, in all honesty, my greatest concern right now is the fact that Republicans appear to me already to be overconfident. This is not in the bag. We don't know if Kamala Harris is going to rise to the occasion. The fact that she is not highly regarded by many in her own party, nor many in the media, Willie Brown, her mentor, who's an old friend of mine because he's actually been on my international best dressed list several years in a row, tells me and has told me that she should not be underestimated, that she is tactical, and she didn't get to the U.S. Senate by being stupid. So if they are saddled with her as their candidate, and I think that is probably likely, I thought that Hillary Clinton was maneuvering because there was a piece published in The Hill, which is a D.C. publication, that I saw as a trial balloon. I thought that Hillary Clinton very surely would be maneuvering in this mix with other would-be presidents. But let's recognize that if Kamala Harris is nominated, she has a number of options that could affect the Electoral College map. If she took Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, a swing state, for vice president, or Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, the current governor, another must-win state, that alters the geography of this race. I predict to you that when things settle down, because you've got two major news events here, not only the attempt on Donald Trump's life, but also the stunning announcement that Joe Biden is not going to stand for re-election, it's very hard to poll accurately within the eye of the storm. Generally speaking, a wise survey researcher waits for public attitudes to settle down. I predict that the race is still going to be relatively close, that President Trump will maintain his narrow lead in the swing states. The good news is that some states that heretofore were thought to be out of reach now appear to be potentially winnable. Those specifically being Virginia, New Mexico, Maine, and New Jersey. Yes, I went on the floor of the Republican National Convention to meet with those in the New Jersey delegation, and there is a definite feeling among New Jersey Republicans that the state is in play. In fact, I have seen polling that now shows it within 4 points. New Jersey, heretofore, a reliably blue state. So Republican overconfidence here is a great danger. Donald Trump understands he is going to have to work and fight for every vote, that nothing can be taken for granted. Clearly, some foreign leaders think that there's a growing likelihood that he will be president. I think that explains President Zelensky of Ukraine reaching out to him. Obviously, the visit from former Prime Minister of the UK, Boris Johnson. But Republican overconfidence is something that disturbs me greatly. Was also very pleased that in the wake of the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump, that finally Secretary Mayorkas of Homeland Security ordered Secret Service protection for independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's about time. I'm not a supporter of Mr. Kennedy. I'm obviously a 45-year friend of President Donald Trump and a strong supporter of his. But both Robert Kennedy's uncle and his brother gunned down JFK when he was president. Senator Robert F. Kennedy of New York, brutally murdered in an assassination in which there are still many public questions. The night he won the Democrat primary in California, in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel. Now, finally, Robert F. Kennedy, who is qualified under federal law for Secret Service protection, will receive it. I think this is has been a politicized decision for whatever reason. The Biden administration either thought that Secret Service protection would connote a certain, inevitability or legitimacy, I should say, not inevitability, but legitimacy to Robert Kennedy's candidacy. And they recognize that if the federal government doesn't pay for Secret Service protection, then Robert Kennedy has to pay those millions and millions of dollars out of his own campaign funds. So I think they have made a good decision. We do not need more violence. I'm honest. I fear that there will be another attempt on Donald Trump's life. I think those in the deep state, those who represent the ruling elite, those who have weaponized our criminal justice system to try to prosecute Donald Trump for non-existent crimes, both at the state and federal level, recognize that under a Trump presidency, you will have equal protection under the law. So I pray every night when I say the rosary, I include Donald Trump in my prayers, Donald Trump and his family. As I said earlier on the show, I think he is in some ways a different man. He has a certain calmness about him that he did not have previously, a certain assuredness, clearly believes the hand of God is involved here. In fact, I think we have some audio. Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana, a man of faith, a man who has served his country, is a U.S. Army veteran, as a law enforcement officer, who is now serves as a member of the House Homeland Security Committee, as well as chairman of the Border Security and Enforcement Subcommittee of that committee. Congressman Higgins also serves as a senior member of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee. So Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana, a strict constitutionalist, a solid conservative, who is recognized as a champion of small government, lower taxes, secure borders, and individual freedoms, joins us now on the Roger Stone. Congressman Clay Higgins, thank you for joining the show.
Oh, Roger, it's wonderful to speak to you, sir, and on behalf of conservative Republicans and the MAGA movement across the country, let me say thank you, good sir, for being an unwavering champion for American principles and the history that has made our country great for 240 years. So I'm honored to speak with you, and we can cover any topic that you like, good stuff.
Well, an obvious place to start, I think, because I know you are a man of deep faith. We met in Milwaukee. We shared a meal over which we prayed. I see the hand of God in all of this. 18 months ago, I saw the heavy, jackbooted authoritarian government attempting not only to bankrupt Donald Trump, but also to incarcerate him over non-existent crimes. So first they wanted to bankrupt him, then they wanted to jail him. Now, sadly, I fear that they have tried to kill him. I think we have an audio that I want to play in which the president reflects on the hand of God in all of this.
My father used to love Billy Graham. My father would take me to see Billy Graham at Yankee Stadium. He had the biggest rallies you've ever seen. He was a good rally guy, too. But he'd get up, and he was a fantastic guy. My father loved Billy Graham. But I love Franklin Graham. I think Franklin's been fantastic, and I'm working so hard to adhere to his note to me. I'm working hard on it, Franklin. But if the events of last Saturday make anything clear, it is that every single moment we have on earth is a gift from God. We have to make the most of every day for the people and for the country that we love. The attacker in Pennsylvania wanted to stop our movement, but the truth is the movement has never been about me. It has always been about you. It's your movement. It's the biggest movement in the history of our country by far. Can't be stopped.
It's interesting that President Trump makes reference to a very famous rally at Yankee Stadium in which Vice President Richard Nixon also addressed the crowd. He's absolutely right. Billy Graham is one of the greatest Americans of the 20th century, and his son Franklin Graham played a very central role in my own redemption in the blood of the cross. He is the man who urged me to come back to the church. Quite frankly, I think this not only saved my life, but has wrought numerous miracles in my life, including my wife of more than 30 years, not only surviving but now thriving after beating stage 4 cancer, only through the healing power of Jesus Christ. So I really, you could feel it in that hall when Donald Trump gave full credit to the Almighty. It was a powerful, powerful moment. You heard the president's speech, Congressman. CBS said he was meandering. They said that he was repetitious. I thought his speech was terrific, uplifting, positive. Yes, he did reprise his greatest hits. You know why? Because we do have an open border. Because we do have the highest rate of inflation in recent history. Because we are on the precipice of 2 world wars, one in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the other one in the Middle East. The president has no choice but to hammer the disastrous record of this administration. It is a record that Kamala Harris is going to have to carry forward. Actually thought in his press conference, when President Biden said, Kamala Harris has been in charge of the border and she's done such a great job, I immediately thought, wow, what a television and radio commercial that will make. Your views on the president's speech, Congressman?
Yes, sir. I was moved by one thought that reverberated as I listened to the president's speech. I was uplifted, and I felt the sincerity of his speech, and there's something deeply beautiful and new about the president's demeanor and his sort of presence, like his very being seems to have been touched by the grace of God. And to me, what struck me in a beautiful way, but by his speech, was that not only was it sincere and clearly came from his heart, every word of it, whether it was from the teleprompter or whether he came off script. Any listener that was paying attention could clearly perceive that President Trump's speech was born of a man's heart that has been that has borne witness to the hand of God in his life, and it just came across with such a sincerity of the president's love for country and love for his fellow man. There's a new sort of a spiritual echo that accompanies his speech that is in itself is uplifting from a spiritual level to me. And the scripture that came to mind as I was listening to him was when Paul in Corinthians told us to place not your faith in the wisdom of man, but in the spirit and power of God. So, yes, I have admired and supported President Trump since 2015, and I admire his wisdom and his strategy, and he always seems to be thinking and planning 5 or 6 steps ahead of the smartest guy in the room. And yes, he's been on a beautiful journey to embrace his Christian faith. I've witnessed that, but he's on another level now, Roger. He is, and I hope that evangelicals across the country are paying very close attention, because this is a moment in American history when Christian principles will have a tremendous voice in what the future of America looks like. And we should encourage and support the president on his Christian journey. and I most certainly do, and I'm more motivated than ever to help the Republican ticket up and down in November. I'm on the ballot myself, as is every congressional candidate. I will win in my district soundly by a wide margin on the first ballot. So I think we're looking at a beautiful era emerging for the entire country and indeed for the world. Let us observe that America is the bright light for the entire free world, and great things happen across God's entire earth when America thrives and when America embraces the core principles that gave birth to our beautiful country. So that's how I see things moving forward, and I am prayerful that the entire country will just take a deep breath and support the brightly illuminated path that the Lord has prepared for our country moving forward.
Exceedingly well said. Folks, if you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show. We're talking to Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana, and we'll be right back.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Roger Stone, and this is the Roger Stone Show here. We have with us Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana's 3rd District. Congressman Higgins, I noticed in the debate, which was a unmitigated disaster for Joe Biden because it revealed to the American people exactly who he is. It's funny that they accused Donald Trump of lying when Biden lied repeatedly, claiming that Trump had called American veterans who gave their life to serve this country suckers and losers, something he never said. There are 20 people present. 19 people insist he never said that. One man, John Kelly, only after he was fired, smears the president by saying otherwise. The claim that Biden inherited 16% inflation from Donald Trump, it was 6.3. Biden claiming that Donald Trump said that Nazis in Charlottesville were fine people, never said that at all. Claiming that Donald Trump said that Hitler did some good things. Again, Donald Trump never said that either. But the other thing I noticed was his recycling the January 6th narrative. Nobody in the Congress has been tougher or more aggressive in seeking to get to the bottom of what really happened on January 6th. Are we ever going to find out what the government's real role was that day? Here's what I know. Those giant heavy doors on the U.S. Capitol can only be opened from the inside. Somebody opened them. Congressman, are we ever going to learn the truth?
Well, we have gradually revealed a great deal of truth, but the truth has been investigated and confirmed within like silos of investigative effort that are not greatly visible to the American people, not at this point, because number one, there's a widespread effort by the mainstream media to conceal that truth, and number two, the most powerful investigative and prosecutorial government entities in the world, the DOJ and the FBI, they are dedicated to concealing that truth. So when guys like me and the Oversight Committee and Jim Jordan on the Judiciary Committee, we have hearing after hearing revealing the truth, and we have very candid media discussions with those that are courageous enough to interview us about these things, like you right now, good sir. We certainly reveal truths to the American people, but the wide recognition of what we are revealing and have revealed is quelled by the mainstream media and by this narrative that has been presented and sold to the American people by the DOJ and the FBI since 2020. Because January 6th didn't begin on January 6th. J6 as an event in our country, as a moment in history, began much earlier in 2020 under COVID oppression. And that's where you really have to begin to understand the depth to which our FBI and our intelligence services were involved in creating the narrative that led to the compromised election cycle of November 2020, which led to the American protest, the Patriot protest in Washington, D.C., our capital, on January 6th in 2021, wherein the stage had been set to create the J6 media circus of a handful of Americans that were sort of reeled in by the staged actors that were on the ground and inside the Capitol that were working on behalf of, or actually for, the FBI and those dark forces within our country that made J6 happen. And the media was standing by to cover it, to create this video monstrosity across every major network, presenting to the American people this false narrative that not only was President Trump, a danger to the country. That's what they were presenting. But the entire mega movement, the mega nation, the 100 million Americans that supported the president and the America First agenda, they presented this narrative that we were enemies of the republic and we were to be looked at as domestic terrorists. So that's an incredibly false narrative, 100% a lie. The events that unfolded on January 6th had been staged for the better part of a year by bad actors within our federal government, including our DOJ and our FBI and our CIA. The election cycle of 2020 was most certainly compromised. You asked the original question, Roger, of will we ever know the truth? I think the true question is, good sir, respectfully, is will America ever believe fully the truth that has already been presented? And will accountability happen becomes the real question. And the answer is, honestly, I don't know. I think that if we can get President Trump inaugurated, and if we have a Republican majority in the House and the Senate, then there will be nothing to stop full accountability. And men like me and Jim Jordan and Chairman Comer and Andy Biggs and Marjorie Taylor Greene, we are going to push for most certainly full accountability of those bad actors within our FBI, DOJ, and our CIA that were involved in setting the stage for J6 and in prosecuting American citizens after J6, using the evidence that they harvested from their staged events on J6.
All right. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So I want to thank Congressman Clay Higgins, a man for whom I have enormous respect for his service to his country and to his extraordinary courage to ferret out the truth, not only about January 6th, but about the entire authoritarian trend in our government. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
Yes. Yes, sir, Roger. God bless you and God bless America, sir.
God bless you. Folks, when we come back, former Democrat Governor Rod Blagojevich of Illinois, who is actually at the Republican National Convention, is going to join us, help us break down what's going on in the Democrat Party today, and get his impression of that convention. So don't touch that dial, because we'll be right back with The Roger Stone Show.
It's The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and this is The Roger Stone Show on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. A lot of news today as President Joe Biden, as I predicted almost 3 years ago, announced that he will not run for re-election. As I said earlier in the show, his brother Jim Biden began telling key Democrats as early as Friday that an announcement would come this weekend. That was evidently delayed by the fact that we have a state visit from Bibi Netanyahu, but that is now a done deal. President Biden releasing a letter in which he says he will not endorse Vice President Kamala Harris, but then minutes later endorsing her. I would note that Barack Obama, a man our next guest knows well, while he did put out a statement praising Biden for stepping down, he pointedly did not endorse Kamala Harris. We're going to ask former Democrat Governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich, how to read those tea leaves. Governor Blagojevich, thank you for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
Hi, Roger. Nice to talk to you again. I miss you. It was good spending some time with you in Milwaukee.
It was amazing, the warm reception you got from so many Republicans. Just to review a piece of history, Governor Blagojevich was one of the earliest victims of the criminalization of our justice system. He was falsely accused of trying to sell or somehow benefit from the appointment of a senator to the seat vacated by Barack Obama when he went to the White House, leaving an Illinois seat open. Prosecutors in his case refused to play the tape in which Blagojevich allegedly made this offer. They would refuse to play the tape, and incredibly, a corrupt federal judge upheld that. I thought, Governor, you had one of the most extraordinary defenses. Was really simple. Play the tape. Play by your actual words. So I think that, I feel like getting T-shirts made that say Rod Blagojevich did nothing wrong, because I don't think you did do anything wrong. I think you were a political victim, and you were most likely, I think, charged because you refused to take orders from Barack Obama and would not appoint his former chief of staff to a vacant Senate seat.
Well, thank you for saying that, Roger. The whole thing started. I spent 8 years in prison on something that Obama started. It was election night, November 2008. Backstage, we're all there at Grant Park. It was magical. And Obama sent an emissary to me, a labor boss who we were both close to as Democrats. And he said, Barack is interested in Valerie Jarrett as the senator. He called me last night. He asked me to come and talk to you because he wants to make a deal. And he wants to know what you want. And Obama, what he was doing was a political thing. It wasn't a criminal thing. And so we started talking about that. They criminalized it against me. And I went to the big house for 8 years, and Obama went to the White House for 8 years. And, Roger, life is unfair. On the other hand, I think God has a plan. And who'd have thought Donald Trump would be the one to rescue me because he saw how corrupt that was. And that the same people, a lot of them, that did to me a Democrat governor at the state level, at that level, would go to the higher level and do to President Trump what they've been doing with weaponized prosecutions on non-criminal things. So, you know, what's greatly interesting to me is how things are shaking out. And today is just another element of all of that. I think it's a continuation of that story. And the Democratic Party today is probably the biggest hypocrites in American political history, Roger. When you think about them running to quote unquote save democracy, yet at the same time they dump the voters' choice. The 15 million voters voted for Obama in the primaries, and the backroom political bosses. Classic old-time Chicago Democratic political boss politics being played by Obama himself. He learned his lessons well in Chicago politics because he and I both came out of it. I've known him since 1995. And from the back room, he orchestrates the pressure to make Biden step aside and thwart the will of those voters. And it's a very interesting dynamic today. These Democrats are the biggest hypocrites in American political history because they're not about saving democracy. They're destroying democracy. This and the weaponization of the Justice Department for political purposes. Those are the big challenges that our country faces. And it's the Democrats led by Obama and Pelosi, these modern day political bosses working in the back rooms who are doing this to us.
The thing I think that impresses me so much, Governor, having spent time with you, gotten to know you, is that after 8 years, again, due to the healing power of Jesus Christ, you have no bitterness. You have no bitterness whatsoever. As Richard Nixon said, never look backwards, always look forward. You are a victim. Your punishment was outrageous, particularly since I don't think you did anything wrong. You were convicted of engaging in politics. And that's it. It's a pity that it has to be said, but it does, because we know that there'll be some Weisenheimers on social media saying, "Oh, Roger Stone and Rod Blagojevich, if you're indicted, you're invited." But that's not a requirement here on the Roger Stone Show. I have enormous respect for the way that you have never lost your dignity, never drowned in self-pity. You are, as Richard Nixon would say, you are truly a man. And I've told you this directly to your face, and I'll say it again. I think you are one of the most skilled political communicators I've ever met. And anybody who wants to bother to look at your record as governor, you never raised taxes on the people of Illinois.
Oh, thank you for saying all of those things, Roger. You know, you're right when you mentioned faith. Was faith, hope, and love? You know, that's the first letters of Corinthians, chapter 13, written by St. Paul. That's what got me through it. You know, faith in God, hope, always hope, and love for my little girls and my wife. And the knowledge that I know I was right, and that if I gave in to these people, I would have been basically betraying the people who elected me. In fact, I would have betrayed the rule of law and the Constitution because I didn't do a darn thing wrong. And these weaponized prosecutors should not be allowed to get away with what they're doing to our democracy. It's among the reasons why I have such great admiration for President Trump. And I feel a connection to him. I don't really know him that well, but I know what they're doing to him is because they did it to me. And I see how strong he is and how tough he is and how he is willing literally to take a bullet for the American people because he knows how dirty and rotten and corrupt the system has become. And the sad reality is it's my political party that is doing more of this than the other party. And there's a new political realignment going on in America. And that convention we were at, Roger, that's a different Republican Party than there used to be. It's a party that's a lot more inclusive, which reflects the American people. And Trump is behind something that's very powerful. And I think at the heart of it, frankly, Roger, is I think the American people are sick and tired of being lied to and being told things they know aren't true, but they're expected to actually believe. So I think there's this tremendous movement that President Trump has been leading, and it's why the other side and the Democrat bosses and the elites and the Hollywood movie stars, Wall Street financiers and Silicon Valley billionaires, it's why they're so, and old school corporate country club Republicans like Liz Cheney, Romney, and those other people, why they're so resistant to Trump is because they don't want to see what they've got going changed because they've been controlling things in America for a long, long time. And the American people are finally rising up. They're sick and tired of it. They're beginning to see the truth. And I feel like in my humble way, notwithstanding those long, hard years my family and I have had to endure, I feel in some strange way there's a role for me to play. Because one thing I'll say, Roger, and I know you feel the same way, We don't like what our government did to us. We know how dirty and rotten those people were. But those were bad people who abused their power. But we love our country. It wasn't our country that did it to us. In fact, you, I think, would agree with me. Our country is in deep trouble. And unless we elect Trump and change this and respect and revere and make the rule of law something that's sacred, not something that's a political weapon, unless we do that, we're going to lose our freedoms in America, and America will be no different than China or Russia.
Governor, I know you have not, this news is all coming very quickly, but you know the Democrat Party far better than I do. Does Kamala Harris have this locked up, or is this still, still an open question? I noticed that Barack Obama did not endorse her. Hillary Clinton, several think pieces floating her name this weekend. Those didn't just pop up automatically. Are we going to see a struggle? You know J.B. Pritzker perhaps better than most Americans. He is, let's just say when J.B. Pritzker sits around the House, he sits around the House. I mean, this guy is a heavyweight in many ways, but particularly financially. He could finance his own campaign for president. A Democrat who I spoke to during the break, a high-ranking Democrat, told me everybody is looking to see what he will do. That Shapiro, the governor of Tennessee, of Governor Cooper, also maneuvering. What's going to happen here in the Democrat Party?
Well, Roger, I think it's going to be awfully hard for the Democrats, with all their rhetoric and all their positions and the priorities they claim they stand for, to ignore the African American, the black woman. And, they're supposedly the party of the feminist movement and they're the party, of the black community. We Democrats, including me, have enjoyed 95% of the black vote. I would argue that the Democrat Party purposefully keeps the black community in a place where it's struggling economically because they don't want to lose their votes, and so they do just a little for them, and then they point fingers at the other side. And the old Republican Party, the Romney-Cheney Republican Party, has done nothing, and so as a result of that, they can get away with it. But Trump now is appealing to black voters for a variety of reasons, so that change is going on. But if you're asking me what do I think will happen, I think it's going to be hard for them to dump Kamala Harris. I think the real race is going to be who's her running mate. And you had pointed out something that I think is really interesting, and that's that the governor of Pennsylvania, Shapiro, considering the battleground states and the states that are in play, a ticket with Harris and Shapiro, from a political point of view, seems very sensible to me. J.B. Pritzker, who I know very well, who used to work for me, I appointed him to the Illinois Human Rights Commission. In fact, he's on the FBI tapes asking me to make him a senator. Incidentally, Roger, if I wanted to sell a Senate seat, that's the guy to sell it to. I could have made a cool $100 million on him. He spent something like $400 million making himself governor twice. But I don't see him as being in play. And the reason is the contrast between JB and JD couldn't be any starker. And there are a lot more American voters who associate their lives with J.D. Vance, and his humble origins and his upbringing, compared to the billionaire heir to the Hyatt Hotel fortune, J.B. Pritzker, who never worked a day in his life and has bought everything he's got, including the governorship twice. So I don't see him in play. I think if you're asking me for a prediction, I'm not very good at these predictions, but I believe it's going to be Kamala Harris and that governor from Pennsylvania. That makes a lot of sense to me. Keep an eye on the governor from Kentucky. They may want to, perhaps look to see if they can try to do what they can to I don't know. I shouldn't be predicting who the vice presidential candidate is going to be, but I think it's going to be awfully hard for them to dump Kamala Harris. And Hillary Clinton, I mean, Trump beat her once. If she's the candidate, he'll beat her twice, and this time he'll beat her by a lot more.
Well, and as I said earlier, if Kamala Harris is so foolish as to take Hillary Clinton for vice president, well, Kamala Harris would need a food taster if she ever got elected. Folks, this is the Roger Stone Show. We're talking to former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, who's been very public about his support for President Donald Trump's reelection. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more of Rod Blagojevich right here on the Roger Stone Show.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. We are breaking down this bombshell news that Joe Biden released a letter today announcing that he would not stand for re-election. He got 95% of the 7,000 delegates, but clearly Barack Obama has maneuvered effectively, lining up Nancy Pelosi as well as Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, behind the scenes, cutting off the Hollywood money, moving some of the major media outlets in the country to opine that Joe Biden should throw in the towel. I'm talking to former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. I saw that Senator J.D. Vance, the vice presidential candidate, put out a statement in the wake of this announcement by Biden, calling on Biden to step down as president, making an obvious, I think pretty simple argument that if you are not well enough to run for president, you're not well enough to do what everybody says is the single toughest job in the world, serving as president of the United States. Governor, your views on Senator Vance's call for this?
No, I very much agree with what he has to say. Think about what we're facing now. Joe Biden has just admitted that they've been lying to us the whole time, that he hasn't been fit to be president, and this didn't just happen overnight. All the suspicions, I think this goes way back to 2020, when as a matter of political expediency, the Democrat elite, the bosses led by Obama, hid him in the basement when he ran for office. They got away with it because of COVID and the other things that happened. I think now, when you think about what's happened, he just said he can't run, he's not well, he's unfit to run for president. How could he possibly be president? And think about the magnitude of what this means. This man, who is unfit to be a candidate, has the power to push a button that can blow up the whole world. It's frightening. And in some respects, we're in a very dangerous time, just because who knows what that guy is capable of doing, considering the fact that he's in the position that he's in. So, no, I think for the sake of world security, I think Biden should not continue on as president, and that he should give up the reins of power.
The two things that I candidly worry about, to be totally honest, one is another attempt on President Donald Trump's life. There's so many emerging questions about the malfeasance by the Secret Service. The questions just keep getting deeper and deeper. We're in information overload, but it appears to me that the Secret Service is well aware of the presence of the man that they quickly identified as the shooter. I also have seen reports that a man named Maxwell Yerrick, who has a criminal record of assaulting Trump supporters. There are claims by some sources in Pennsylvania law enforcement that Yerrick is the killer rather than the man the government very quickly identified. It's kind of like they quickly identified Lee Harvey Oswald. I'm not claiming that that's correct. What I'm claiming is there are legitimate questions here. So, yes, I think we're in a dangerous time because the people who are in power are prepared to do anything necessary to keep power. And because of that, Donald Trump poses an existential threat to them. Unfortunately, that includes taking our country to a world war. This is a really simple matter. When we, the United States, signed the Budapest Memorandum, with Secretary of State James A. Baker III signing for the United States, we agreed specifically if the Russians would allow the reunification of East and Germany, we in turn would agree not to push Ukraine into NATO, which really means not putting U.S. missiles on the ground, funded mostly by the United States, pointed at Russia. Putin has made it very clear that this is his line in the sand. Yet Antony Blinken, our Secretary of State, announced not long ago that in September, Ukraine would join NATO. These people will start a world war if they think that is what's necessary to stop Donald Trump's return to the White House. So, yes, I am deeply concerned. I am praying for the protection of Trump because the people who did this once are perfectly capable of trying it again. And I'm not sure we'll ever get to the bottom of what exactly happened that day, other than the horrific killing of Corey I'll get his name right, Compantari, the brave firefighter who shielded his wife and his daughter and took a bullet to the head. I can't even imagine anything so horrific.
Well, Roger, I think of that brave firefighter and what he stands for, and doing what a father and a husband should do, and that is protect your family, and how he did it so heroically on that special day for their family to go and do something in small-town America that so rarely happens, to be able to see the most significant person in the United States, maybe the world, come into their area and give a speech at the rallies that are so well known and so well loved by Trump supporters, and that they go there on that special day and that happens. And then you think about him and you think about his family and their love of country and how they work every day and they go and do what they're supposed to do as Americans who made this country great, because it's the people that make America great, less so than the presidents or the governors. It's the people. And that they would be so misrepresented by these liars who are in charge. And they are, frankly, the party that I've been a member of all of my political life. They're liars, and they're hypocrites, and they're manipulators, and they're control freaks. And the existential threat to democracy is not Donald Trump. The existential threat to their power and control is Donald Trump. And that's why they're so determined to destroy him any way they can. And when you raise questions about whether or not that attempted assassination was more than just some crazy 20-year-old kid on a rooftop, those are reasonable questions. I would imagine that if you're a Secret Service agent, you're in Secret Service school. The first class you take is Secret Service 101. Learn what happened to Kennedy in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963. Look at the rooftops. And the fact
all right, Governor, I got to cut you off there. We're out of time. I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show. And folks, stay tuned for my good friend Joe Piscopo. Will be right along with Sundays with Sinatra.